Hey guys, Prowl1701 here, and today we're going to be ranking the 5th Doctor era, with Season 20 coming out hopefully in the next couple months. I figured it's a good time to look at all of the 5th Doctor stories, especially since I've seen them all now, and rank them from worst to best. So we're going to be looking at seasons 19, 20, and 21, which I believe is 20 stories even, if I've done my counting right. Mississippi education, I make no promises. But I like Davison's Doctor. He's not super high on my list, but I tend to like most of the Doctors. And he was one of my favorites as a child. So we're going to look at every 5th Doctor story and rank them from worst to best. And starting at the bottom in 20th place is Kenda. Now, it's no secret that I don't like Kenda. I'm a little more lenient to it after my last watch through. The second 2 episodes weren't bad. They were all right. They actually did some things I liked. They did some things I didn't. They were tolerable. The first 2 episodes I thought were terrible. Kenda is one of my least favorite Classic Who stories, and I will never understand how people like it better than Snakedance. I don't get that mentality at all. Kenda's not only my least favorite 5th Doctor story, it's one of my least favorite classic episodes. Don't get me wrong, it's still miles better than some of the stuff Mawdryn Who puts out, like Kill the Moon and Fear Her and Arachnids in the UK, and quite a bit of Series 11 actually. But still, I didn't like the first 2 episodes. I didn't like the story. I found it boring. Tegan as the Mara is criminally underused. She's great as the Mara, aside from that weird lipstick on the teeth thing. But she doesn't get to be the Mara much in this. It's another reason I like Snakedance better. She gets to go all Mara more in it. But the 3rd and 4th episodes are fine, and some of the guest cast do a pretty good job, I think. The second half of it I find watchable, which is the most I can give it. Next on the list is Warriors of the Deep. Now, I've only seen Warriors of the Deep one time, but it did not impress me. It's like a really crappy version of Silurians and Sea Devils. There's a whole stuff going on with them underwater. Them being thrown together doesn't make sense, the Silurians and the Sea Devils. The Silurians weird, or the Sea Devils weird samurai armor, which don't look bad, but seem a little out of place. Excuse me. The Merca doesn't bother me as much as it does some people. It's not great, but it doesn't bother me as much as it does some people. It's nice to see Ingrid Pitt back again, although I much prefer her in her Time Monster outfit personally. And then that outfit Davison wears most of the episode, that little weird jump, whatever it is he's wearing, I don't like it. I don't care for it. It's got one of the worst endings of any Classic Who ever. Again, it's miles better than some of the stuff in the modern series, but that should have been a better way. It's so on the nose. It's like the Classic Who version of the 13th Doctor's speech at the end of Orphan 55. But thank God it's at least shorter. But it's too on the nose, and it kind of ruined the whole episode. I remember watching that the first time, and as soon as that happened, and then the credits rolled, I was like, are you kidding me? Really? Like, I was rolling my eyes. Something about the blonde doctors, I guess. And then there's the scene when the Merca's attacking and Ingrid Pitt's like, I'm just kidding. How do I stop it? The gun's not working. Yeah. It's just... That's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in Classic Who. Mawdryn Who has topped that, but I'm just kidding. Yeah, this one's terrible. And at number 18 on the list is Time Flight. Now, I don't hate Time Flight. I find it a little underrated. It's not great. The productions don't look too good. Some of the special effects don't look too good. The Master being disguised serves no purpose to the plot. There's no reason for him to be disguised, other than for the secret reveal to us of, it's actually me, Dr. Muhahaha. Because that never happens in the Davison era, where, you know, the Master's disguised. Also, that disguise, I'm pretty sure it's racist. I'm not quite sure what it's racist of, but I feel like I should be offended on behalf of someone. Yeah, I've only watched Time Flight the one time, but I remember coming away from it liking it better than its reputation. It really needs a rewatch, to be honest. I do remember some of the special effects being especially naffed, even for classic Who. But I remember enjoying it enough to call it watchable, and not thinking it's the dumpster fire some people accuse it of being, at least. That's about the most I could give it without giving it a rewatch. Next on the list is Terminus. Terminus is not bad. Terminus's main crime is that it's very forgettable. I like Terminus. It's just one of those stories you rewatch once every 7 years, you know? You don't rewatch it very often. It's one of those stories where somebody's like, what happens in Terminus? And you're like, Nissa leaves. What else? There's this dog thing in it. Oh, what else? Why do you ask so many questions? It's easy to forget Terminus. I always enjoy a rewatch of it. It's a good final story for Nissa, I guess. I don't quite know what the director was up to, trying to get her out of as much of her clothes as possible. Well, I guess I know what he was up to. The dog costume looks fine. I like the kind of suits that the guys who live on the station wear. They look kind of like the still suits that they wear in Dune, like in the 1984 Dune, the better Dune. They look kind of like that. So I kind of like the armor design. And some of the guest casting I think is fine. And Terminus, again, doesn't stick in my mind. It does move a little slow at places. Like when Tegan and Turlo are stuck like in the cramped crawl spaces for way too long in the story. But overall, I find it a nice, watchable, yet forgettable story. And next on the list is The Awakening. Now, I watched this for the first time recently, and it's already fading from my mind. I remember liking part 1 and really not liking part 2. It just feels... I know this was originally supposed to be a 4-parter, and it got cut down to 2 parts. And ultimately, I found it underwhelming. I also find the cave in the wall to be not very impressive. The location work looks nice. There's some interesting stuff going on in the story. I find the guest cast to be good. Like I said, I liked part 1, but I didn't like part 2. And I find it pretty forgettable, and I didn't really like the resolution of it much. That's really all I have to say about The Awakening. It's kind of my least favorite of the 3 Davison 2-parters. Probably my least favorite Doctor Who 2-parter, to be honest. And next on the list is Black Orchid. Black Orchid, I don't really care for much either. I love the location work, and I love the fact that since season 19's location footage survives the film elements, it looks really good. It's nice to see the Doctor having some fun playing cricket. I think some of the interior scenes, the studio scenes, look really good with the houses done up really nice. I find the plot uninteresting. I find the costume party uninteresting, although some of the dancing scenes look fun. I don't like that there's a girl there that looks just like Nissa. I never liked the stories where, oh look, there's somebody that looks just like somebody else. Like in The Enemy of the World, The Massacre, excuse me. And in this, I don't mind it as much in Meglos, because it actually makes sense to the plot of the story why Tom Baker's in dual roles, so that I like. But I never liked it in Enemy of the World. I probably wouldn't like it in The Massacre, and I don't like it here. Don't really like the resolution of the story. It's fine, but it's nothing to write home about. It's really just some of the location work that impresses me, and I am way too tired today. Yeah, in retrospect, this should have been lower, but I still like it better than The Awakening. And next on the list is Planet of Fire. I like Planet of Fire, but it's one of those rare stories where I prefer the original version over the updated effects. Some of the updated effects look nice, some of the updated effects do not. I don't like it in widescreen, and I don't like the fact that, much like the Enlightenment Special Edition, it was cut into that movie length instead of being in episodic form. So I do prefer the original version of Planet of Fire. The Special Edition's an interesting watch when you're in the mood for it. I wonder if we'll get new updated effects for it when the 21 box set comes out, kind of like we did for Enlightenment on the Season 20 box set when it finally releases. I'm curious about that. The story I like. Turlough gets some nice character development. It's a good final episode for him. It's a nice introduction to Perry. I never liked Chameleon. I really don't like Chameleon. I much prefer Chameleon in King's Demons. Chameleon in this one's very annoying, especially when he's shapeshifted into the one guy with the silver face. That's really weird. It's the whole Master being shrunk down because he messed up with his own ray is silly. Although I like to think that maybe the trap the Doctor set for him at the end of King's Demons did it. That would be funny. Anthony Ainley's putting in a fine performance. The cliffhanger where it actually does resolve into him actually being the Master. It was me again, Dr. Mwah! I kind of like, even though, again, it's a bit tropey in this era. Especially the Fifth Doctor's era. But I enjoy it. The casting is fine. I tend to enjoy a lot of it. It's nothing to write home about. It's not essential Doctor Who, but it's a good exit story for Turlough and a good introduction for Perry. And it's nice to get a little bit of time, with 5 and Perry together, since, usually we see her with 6. So, yeah, it's all right. Next on the list is Snakedance. I much prefer Snakedance to Kinda. Snakedance is fine. I mean, I've only watched it the one time, but hey, we got Martin Clunes in it. That's pretty cool. He's putting in a good performance. I enjoy the special effects of the snake a little better. Looking forward to seeing the updated effects for that. Janet Fielding is doing a great job as a panicked Tegan and as a Mara-controlled Tegan. I like when she plays the Mara. And it's nice that we get to see more of that here. We have a really good cliffhanger for episode 1 with the skull and the glass shattering. That's a pretty cool cliffhanger. I like that. You feel sorry for a couple of people in this it doesn't end well for. My biggest complaint about Snakedance is that the original filmed ending isn't in it. The part that's one of the deleted scenes where it actually shows the kind of epilogue of after they defeat the Mara at the end. I enjoy that. I really hope the box set actually allows you to watch that in the episode. I don't think it does, or they probably would have mentioned that. But I would love to be able to watch episode 4 with that added in, like as a work print or something, because I love that ending a lot. But yeah, the setting's not overly impressive. Nyssa is basically useless. It's a mixed bag, and Davison is, can't remember how I feel about Davison in this one. I think he was all right. So yeah, not essential Doctor Who again, but miles better than Kinda, and not a bad story by any means. And next on the list, we're moving into the ones I actually really like at this point. We're starting with King's Demons. I like King's Demons. It's my favorite of the Davison two-parters. One of my favorite two-parters in Classic Who. Yeah, I liked it. I love the guy playing the fake king. He gets all the bonus cool points. He is great in this. I like Anthony Ainley as the Master, even though when I first saw him in disguise, I'm like, and I knew the Master was in the story going into it, but I was still like, yeah, that's the Master. That's definitely Anthony Ainley. It's definitely Anthony Ainley. So when we get the cliffhanger of, oh, Doctor, you have been naive, I'm like, okay, we got our cliffhanger Master reveal. But I enjoyed the sword fight. I love the sword fight at the end of part 1. It looks choreographed really well. I mean, it looks like it is choreographed, but it looks choreographed well. It's nice to see Davison have a chance to show off his swordsmanship. And then I also enjoyed the mental battle they have toward the end of part 2 when they're fighting for control of Chameleon. That whole scene, the confrontation between them, the conversation between them, and that pure battle of wills. Like, the end of part 1 is a physical battle. The end of part 2 is a mental battle. I like that. I enjoy the some of the guest actors, like the guy playing the son who Honor is offended. I don't think much of him. He's a very two-dimensional character, though. But his dad, I guess the Duke who owns the castle or whatever, I liked him in it a lot. I found it a fun story. And with Davison trying to figure out what's going on, then trying to stop the Master, then rigging a trap for the Master. I like King's Demons. I think it's a fun little two-parter that deserves more attention than it gets. Next on the list is Frontios. Now, Frontios, much like King's Demons, are stories I've seen for the first time recently because a couple of you guys sent them, because I do have some pretty awesome subscribers who have been really kind, especially over the past couple of years, about sending things, which I really appreciate. So I enjoyed Frontios. I mean, the Tractators, or whatever they're called, aren't the most terrifying villains, especially in appearance. And I can kind of see why they never came back, even though I know there were plans for them to come back. But it's interesting seeing what's going on with Turlo. At first I was like, why is this dude freaking out so much? But to learn that it's like a hereditary fear that's in their very DNA to be afraid of them, because the Tractators are apparently very deadly. That's pretty interesting, and it's some nice character development for Turlo. The Doctor, Peter Davison, is on fire in this one. He is really, really doing well in this one. I love the fact he actually gets to be a doctor in this one. I love some of the effects shot look really good. The Tractators aren't impressive at all, but there's one shot where it shows the ship kind of sitting on the ground, and that looked really good with the model combined with the live action and the camera. It looked really good. It was a really impressive shot. You know, the TARDIS seemingly being destroyed, that whole bit is cool. I like that, with just the hat rack remaining, just to add a little humor to it. And then them finding pieces of the TARDIS in other places. I really like that. I like the guest cast. The reveal of what happens to people who were taken. First of all, people being taken into the ground like that's creepy. I like that. Seeing them used to power the different machines, also creepy. I like that. Seeing the actual machine with the guy in it, and then seeing the behind the scenes for what they wanted to do with it. They got cut with more people in it. That's impressive. I like that. Season 21 really does where it starts to get dark. It's like the Colin Baker era before Colin Baker is the Doctor. Some dark stuff happens in season 21, and this is an example of that. I really enjoyed this story. Again, one of my favorite Davison performances as well. Next on the list is Mawdryn Undead. I find this one a little overrated, but I still think it's pretty good. I love having the Brig back. I don't think the story really fits the Brig, and I wish they could have gotten William Russell back as Ian. But it's always nice to see the Brig. I love me some Nicholas Courtney in a story. And I love how he plays the two Brigadiers slightly differently. With the 77 one being a little more militaristic in his dress and the way he acts, and the 83 one being a little more used to civilian life. I like that. Good introduction for Turlo. Love having Valentine back as the Black Guardian. He just sells that role every second he is on the screen. He has that magnificent voice. He's one of my favorite parts of Slipback. The Slipback audio, I love Valentine. He just has that voice that makes such a good villain. And he is phenomenal in this. The story is okay. I mean, I like that it has the group of people playing God and it kind of biting them in the ass. I do enjoy that in the story. And I love that the ship they're on is supposed to be kind of like in Robots of Death, a luxury ship, but they're still trapped in it. They're trapped because they flew too close to the sun, so to speak. I don't really care for the makeup used to make them look that way. Like the little brain stuff on the head creeps me out. I don't like it. And the pale skin with that, I don't really like the design choices for Mawdryn and his people. The way they look, I don't like that at all. It's my least favorite part of the story. The updated effects on the DVD are also really nice. I enjoy that as well. And the bit where they trap the Doctor by making Tegan and Nissa get younger and older is pretty clever. It's interesting to see him outsmart a Time Lord like that. And I love the way the story resolves at the end. I think it's a good ending. So yeah, I think Mawdryn Undead is a pretty strong story and a great way to start off the Black Guardian trilogy. Next on the list is Arc of Infinity, which could be the most underrated Davison story. I like Arc of Infinity. It is one of those stories that I have memory of from when I was a child. I did see it when I was little, back in the 80s on PBS, because I always remember Davison playing the good guy and the bad guy, and then the bad guy slowly disappear, disintegrating basically and falling apart, and him running around. I didn't know it was Amsterdam, but him running around. I remember all of that. And then the bit when he first becomes human looking, he takes off the glove. I vividly remember those scenes. But I enjoy the story. It's nice bringing Omega back. I prefer his Three Doctors costume, but this is a good way, him having a different costume of us not knowing it's Omega until it's revealed it's Omega in the story. I love having Michael Goff back because I love me some Michael Goff. He is forever my Alfred. So if you got Michael Goff in your story, you got me. So it's great having him back in Doctor Who. I love having Barusa again. I know it's a different actor playing Barusa, it always is, but I like having another story with Barusa. It's nice to see he's become president of the Time Lords here. It's a good way to set up events that we'll see later in Five Doctors. I love the location work in Amsterdam. I think everybody's putting in a good performance. Nyssa actually gets stuff to do and is acting very dangerous because I know it was originally supposed to be Leela in this story. But I love the fact Nyssa's getting to actually kind of kick ass in this story. I don't really care for Omega's henchman, the little bird creature. I don't really care for that. But it's other than that, I think it's a pretty good, pretty underrated story. And I have been waiting so long to rewatch it because I've been waiting on this box set. I own the DVD, but I've been wanting to wait for the box set to come out because we've been thinking we were going to get it for like 2 or 3 years now. So I've been waiting literally a couple of years to rewatch this story because I wanted to wait for the box set. I'm looking forward to rewatching this story. And next on the list is Resurrection of the Daleks. Another one I haven't watched in a long time. I don't actually own that one. And I've really wanted to rewatch it. It's a good story. I love how violent it is. I love how dark it is. I mean, it famously has a higher body count than the Terminator. I think Davison is putting in a good performance. I think Janet Fielding is putting in a good performance as you just see the events of the story taking their toll on her. And you understand why her departure is the way it is. I enjoy the guest cast. I like the guy playing Lytton. I like him in it. It's good to see him back in Attack of the Cybermen. The guy playing the one who's like, I am a Dalek agent, the one that sets off the bomb at the end. I like him. I like a lot of the actors at the beginning who are guarding Davros, who try to kill Davros but don't succeed. You start getting attached to them and they get killed. So many people get killed. I mean, oddly enough, my only complaint about this story is it needs updated effects. It needs updated effects so bad. It's so hard to watch with the current effects. This is a story, if it gets updated effects, it's always going to get watched with updated effects. It needs them. Especially in like the scenes when the Daleks are first invading the station and killing everybody. Because the weapons the humans use don't even like fire. They just make a sound and they light it. Yeah, that's not good enough. Not good enough. Needs updated effects. But I am looking forward to giving it a rewatch because it does have a lot of good stuff going on in it. And I think it's a really good Dalek story. It's my favorite Dalek story from the 80s. And they're all good, so. And next on the list is the legendary Earthshock. I like Earthshock. It's basically a retelling of Revenge of the Cybermen, but in a more epic scale, even if it doesn't have as good a doctor or as good companions. It's done in a more epic scale that makes it work. And of course, we have the loss of a companion, which is not something that really happens a lot in classic Doctor Who. So it's interesting to see that, and the fact it's Adric, so most of us are okay with that. That, of course, adds to the story's legendary status. I love the Cybermen in this one. The guy, David Banks, who plays the Cyber Leader? He's always good in the role, he puts in a good performance. I love the Cybermen design here. I love the 80s Cybermen design. I mean, it's not as good as the Invasion, Revenge of the Cybermen design, but it's still really good. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, they're a little emotional, but I love it. That whole bit about, aren't they not supposed to interfere? This one does nothing but interfere. It actually sums the Doctor up pretty well, and I like it. I love the Cyber Leader recognizing the TARDIS, figuring out who the Doctor is. And then just that episode 1 cliffhanger when it's revealed to be the Cybermen is a phenomenal cliffhanger. One of the best cliffhangers in Classic Who, or Doctor Who. Because we haven't seen the Cybermen in so long up to this point, and the name of the episode doesn't give it away, like happens a lot in Classic Who. Just being called Earthshock, all we know is we have those androids they're fighting at the beginning, which are also a cool design, and there's some cool scenes with that. So that cliffhanger that is actually the Cybermen, which haven't been on the show in like 8 years or so, Great job. Great job. The bit in the caves at the beginning in episode 1 is really neat, really nice, getting us introduced to these human soldiers that are running around. You start to get attached to them, and it kind of sucks when they start dying. Meeting the people who fly the ship. I know a lot of people think the captain of the ship was miscast, but I like her. I know she's a famous British actress, stunt casting, J&T, all that stuff. See, I always in my head assumed that she like inherited it from like her husband or something, like maybe her husband ran it and when he died she took it over. That's the way it comes across to me, is she's not experienced at doing it, she just kind of inherited the role or the company or whatever, and she's making a go at doing it. And that works for me, that works for my headcanon. And then I like the set design in it. I think the set design looks really good. Earthshock it's got a good reputation for a reason. It is essential Doctor Who viewing, especially if you're a Cyberman fan. And next on the list is Enlightenment, my favorite part of the Black Guardian trilogy. It's a nice spotlight episode for Tegan. She gets some nice stuff to do. It's a wonderful script. I love the idea of this kind of race in space with all these old style looking ships, and these, this group of Eternals and Celestials who are just bored and doing it for sport. And then, of course, the Black Guardian trying to influence the outcome. It's a great story for Turlough. It's nice to see him at the end kind of stand with the side of good and throw the crystal into the fire. Of course, again, Valentine is putting in a great performance here. And the guy who plays the White Guardian is also doing a good job. The Doctor is good here. I love the updated effects version, the special edition and the regular version. The updated version, I don't really care for the widescreen, and again, I wish it was an episodic format instead of edited into the movie length. But I really did like those updated effects. I thought they looked very cinematic and really good. Some more than others, but especially the updated effects for the ships when they're racing and going by looked really good. The original version is fine. I do think this is probably, aside from the Five Doctors, probably my favorite story of season 20. No, season 20. Yeah, season 20. It's just a lot of fun. It also has a sense of epicness to it that I really like, and it's a great resolution to the trilogy of Black Guardian stories. I like it. Easing into the top 5, we have, appropriately enough at number 5, The Five Doctors, the Peter Davison story that has Troughton in it. Ah, yes. Eat, drink, and watch Troughton, for tomorrow we die. I love me some Troughton. Just when he first shows up in the story, you're not allowed in there. Me, I'm allowed everywhere. I love Troughton. Per usual, Troughton steals the show. I enjoy this story. It feels way more like a celebration of Doctor Who than, say, Day of the Doctor did, and I like Day of the Doctor. But it felt more like a celebration of modern Who than Doctor Who. The Five Doctors feels like a celebration of Doctor Who, of all 20 years of Doctor Who up to that point. I love Richard Hurndall as the first Doctor. He's far better at it than David Bradley. Nothing against David Bradley. I just feel like Richard Hurndall feels more like William Hartnell's first Doctor than Bradley does. I absolutely love Richard Hurndall in the role. He was my first Doctor, because I saw Five Doctors before I saw any of his other stuff. And I think he puts in a nice performance. He has a very commanding presence, like William Hartnell and like the first Doctor is supposed to have, which I feel like David Bradley doesn't have. Of course, he's also going up against the 12th Doctor there, who also commands the room. So I absolutely love Richard's performance. He's doing a great job there. It's nice seeing Carol Ann Ford back. Of course, I love Troughton, and I love seeing Pertwee back. He's also one of my favorite Doctors, and he's great in the role. Naturally, I would have loved to have had Tom Baker, but I love the trick they did to have him in there with the unused Shada footage. It doesn't quite work 100% now since we have Shada out, so when it happens, you're not like, oh, they got Tom Baker for a day, which is what I thought when I was little. I figured, well, maybe Tom Baker could only film for a day, and he couldn't do the whole story. He had other stuff going on, because I didn't know about Shada when I was little. Now when I watch it, I'm just like, oh yeah, that spot from Shada. So it's not 100% effective, but for the time, I think it was a great solution and a nice way to sneak Tom in for a minute. Davison is fine in this. I love the guy who's playing Barusa in this is really good. He has that very commanding tone of voice. And the twist with Borusa is great, especially since Borusa is a character that's been around since the Deadly Assassin. So, what, about 8 years or so? I think that's a good twist with him. I think Rassilon has done really well. I like the guy voicing and doing Rassilon. And I love the twist of the story about, getting eternal life, because I actually think that's quite appropriate. Eternal life isn't, living forever. It's watching everyone else die. So I enjoy the lesson taught in that. I like getting to watch the Doctors interact. I love the location work. I'm looking forward to seeing that in HD. It's great seeing Sarah Jane back, because that is my favorite companion. Again, I love seeing the Brigadier back, especially since we'd just seen him recently, but it's great seeing him back here. I love the pairing. I love the second Doctor with the Brigadier a lot. As much as I love 3 with the Brigadier, they're great. I much prefer 2 with the Brigadier. I just feel like they get on better. It's nice to see 3 with Sarah Jane. That works since they were together for a while. I enjoy everything about that. The Cybermen get a nice huge part in it. The Master gets a nice huge part in it. And it all feels like it comes together really, really well. And it feels like that not only is it a good celebration of all of Doctor Who up to that point, it feels like a good story in its own right. And Uncle Terrence knocks it out of the park again, like Uncle Terrence practically always does, because he's Uncle Terrence. Number 4 on the list is the legendary Caves of Androzani, which is a masterpiece of writing. Not only has Caves been called the greatest classic Who story of all time, it has also been called the greatest Doctor Who story of all time. And while I don't quite go that far, I do think it's probably objectively Davison's best story, probably his best performance in the role. And it's interesting how dark this story is. Don't get me wrong, season 21 is pretty dark in general, but I think people have the misconception that all of Davison's era is a lot lighter, more like season 19 and 20 are. And this story really is a stark contrast to that, because just so many things go wrong and so many things snowball downhill. And everybody's putting in a good performance. Again, Davison's putting in a great performance. Nicola is putting in a great performance. The guy who plays Jack is fantastic. This Phantom of the Opera style character is written so well. His design for his mask is done so well, and the actor is doing such a great job playing him. It's good at making him a terrifying character while also being kind of a creepy character, while also being a sympathetic character. You feel bad for this guy, and you see what happened, to make him like this. It does a good job of doing with all of that. And even some of the other characters, the interesting thing about this is there's no good side. It's what I love about Caves of Androzani. There's no good side. All of these different factions that are at work that the Doctor is thrust in the middle of are bad people. One way or another, they're bad people. Jack is not a good person. Part of that is just because of what he went through. Then you have the military guy who's trying to get rid of Jack, the guy with the mustache. Again, he's not necessarily inherently mustache-twirlingly evil. I mean, there are times where he doesn't seem necessarily like a bad guy. He's a bad guy, but he doesn't want to execute the Doctor. He just kind of has to. He's following orders. He's doing what he's told. The guy who's his second in command doesn't strike me as necessarily a bad guy, but he's his second in command, so he's not a very good guy. Also, the actor who plays him, who also plays the robot that looks like him, he does a really good job playing both characters, and you can see the difference between the two characters. And I think he's the same guy who plays Thomas Edison in the Tesla episode of Series 12. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think I'm right. He's doing a good job at how he plays the robot in a more robotic manner than he does the actual second-in-command guy, and he does a good job with both. And then there's the guy, Morgan or whatever his name is, something like Morgan. It's not Morgan, but it's something like that. The one that keeps talking to the camera. That's one of the weak spots, is when he keeps talking to the camera. They must be on to me. I should find out. Something must be... That's really annoying. That is really annoying. That and his hairstyle is unfortunate, with the slick backed hair with it pulled into the ponytail. That's an unfortunate choice. But his acting performance, other than some of that, it's fine. I love that part where he's like, how sad. That's funny. That's actually really funny. So he does some good acting in that. I love the secretary turning on him at the end. I absolutely love that. The guys who are playing, the guys working for Morgan, the Raiders, that's another group of very bad people who really are very bad people. The actors playing them are doing fine. The costume design for the Bat creature isn't really that great. I mean, it looks better than the Merca, but it's not really that great. But fortunately, it's not really on the screen long either, so that doesn't really trip you up much. It's only there for a little bit and then it's gone. I enjoyed the camera work in this a lot. I think the set design looks good. The cliffhangers are good. That episode 3 cliffhanger is rightfully considered one of the best cliffhangers in Doctor Who. It's a great cliffhanger. Davison gives a good speech there. And the regeneration scene is really good, especially when you realize the Doctor barely knows Perry at this point. You're not counting Big Finish stuff. But, this is very early after he met her, that he goes through all of this to save her. And then I love the regeneration effect. The way he regenerates here is, I think, it's one of the best regenerations. It's one of my favorite regenerations. Caves deserves a lot of the accolades it gets. It is the greatest writer Doctor Who ever had, stepping back up to the plate for the first time since Power of Prowl, actually, and knocking a grand slam out of the park like Bob Holmes does. When Bob Holmes is at his best, there is no Doctor Who writer that is better. And he just kills it. My understanding is that even Bob Holmes, when he was asked why he wrote this the way he did, is that he basically wanted to put the Fifth Doctor through hell. It's interesting to realize that Bob Holmes had been away from the series for so long, because I think there's a big gap. I think it was Power of Prowl and then about a 5-year gap before he did this. But I am glad he came back and wrote it, because it's just one more masterpiece for him to, to have on his record of amazing things he wrote for Doctor Who. You guys know I love Bob Holmes. So Caves of Androzani, probably objectively Davison's best story, just not my personal favorite. Next on the list for me is The Visitation. One, the location work is gorgeous. Again, film elements survived. It looks really good. I enjoyed the story. I love the guest cast, especially the one guy with the guns who's kind of the mercenary type character. The actor playing him is fantastic. He is great, the actor and the character. I don't really care for the robot. I think this is the one with the robot. The robot looks bad. When he's in his Grim Reaper outfit, he's okay. But when he's not in it, it's one of those times where you're like, this was made in the 80s. But I feel like everybody is putting in a good performance. I think it's a lot of fun. I like the creature design for it. It's not the best in the world, but I think it looks good. I like the fact that on kind of the lead creature, you can actually see the damage from the beginning of the episode when it first entered the family's house and the family fought it. You can see the damage for that. That's pretty cool. And I like how it ties in with that historical fire. The Visitation is a good story, and one that I always enjoy rewatching. And number 2 on the list is Four To Doomsday. I really like this one. I feel like it's underrated. For a story that's completely studio bound, one, I like the sets. I like the guest cast. Davison's putting in a good performance here, especially considering it was the first one he was recorded. He's also got that killer smile. I love when he first walks out of the TARDIS and sees the little camera thing, and he just smiles at it. That's a very Doctor thing to do, and I really like that. Adric is very irksome in this one, but Nyssa and Tegan are fine. I like the concept of a lot of the people being converted into robots once they're done with the flesh time. Like the cliffhanger when the guy, pulls out the chip and goes, "This is me." I think that was a cliffhanger. It's really good. I've watched Four To Doomsday a couple times and I always enjoy it. I like the actor playing the main antagonist. I forget his name, but I really like him. And then the 2 sidekicks he has, minions, I like both of them. I like how they convert themselves to match Tegan's drawings. I like the fact that the main antagonist thinks he's like the smartest person ever. So concepts of like the Time Lords and stuff baffles him. He thinks it's all nonsense. You know how it is when you see that person that thinks they're the smartest one in the room and it's not true and you're just like, yeah, that. I don't know, I just like rewatching this one. The dance scenes are a little too long. They do go on a little too much. I I also like the fact that we get to see Davison use the Sonic, because Davison doesn't have the Sonic very long in his tenure as the Doctor. So it's nice to see him get some use out of the Sonic in this story. Yeah, I like Four To Doomsday. I just feel like it's massively, massively underrated. And it's actually my second favorite Davison story. And number one on the list for me is Castrovalva. I like Castrovalva. It's, again, one of the ones I have earlier memories of. One of the first DVDs I really bought was the New Beginnings box set, which has Traken, Logopolis, and Castrovalva on it. So I got to watch it when I first started getting really back into Classic Who in the mid-2000s, or the mid to late 2000s, whenever I started really picking up the DVDs. And I like it. I especially like the updated effects on the season 19 box set, because it did need some updated effects. I like the concept of Castrovalva. I love how that concept is explored in the story. Like when he's showing them on the board, you know, okay, where's that one building at? And he's like, here, here, and here. And then they're all like, wait, what? I think that's really neat. How they almost get stuck back in time, or back at the Big Bang, is pretty cool. There's a few times in Doctor Who where they do that. Terminus has to do with the Big Bang too. So that's pretty neat. The whole bit with using Adric to create the mathematics that's a little confusing, but it's fine. And then the fact that Portreeve was the master, I did not see that coming. That reveal, which is yet another, it's actually me, Doctor. Yeah, because that doesn't happen in the Davison era, which is the second time I think I've had to say that in this video. But it wins this time because I didn't catch it the first time I watched it. I never realized that was Anthony Ainley. And so the reveal actually left me going, huh? What? So that was pretty cool. It gets this one. The location work looks nice, what little bit we get of it. I love how it picks up right after Logopolis, with them trying to escape from the Pharos project, the bit with the Master stealing Adric, and then watching the Doctor recover from his post-regeneration. I love when he's acting like his previous incarnations. I feel like Peter Davison does a really good job with that, especially when he's doing like the first and second Doctors. He nails it. I love the fact he's got Hartnell's laugh down when he does the that's really, really good. I enjoyed that. So yeah, and I love the fact he used the scarf to create a trail, because he doesn't quite know where he's going. I like Castrovalva. I think it's a lot of fun. It might not be Davison's objective best, but it's my personal favorite. So I want to know what you think of this list and how you would rank them. So comment down below and let me know. Other things to do. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. I am trying to reach 1,000 subscribers in 2023, and we are well on our way to that. Ooh, excuse me. So if you like my content and haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click that button. I also have a Patreon. If you would like to support me on that, I would appreciate it if you check that out. There's a link to that down in the description below if you want to take a quick minute to look it over. Several different tiers to choose from. It's Doctor Who themed. My entry-level tier is only $2 a month. I want to give a shout out to some of my top tier patrons, Stephen Crane, Colin Coney, and Finn Perkins. I appreciate their support, as I do the support of all of my patrons. It does make a difference, and it is appreciated. I also have a P.O. box if there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, and a link to my Amazon wish list is down there as well. Most importantly, thank you for watching. Next on the list is Warriors of the Deep. Now, I've only watched Warriors of the Deep one time. Excuse me. Let's try that again. And already Warriors of the Deep is putting me to sleep. Next on the list is Time Flight. Whew. Feel out of gas here. I find the plot ooh, my acid reflux is not happy today. Next on the list is why am I this sleepy? Next on the list, what are we? Easing into the top 5 now, yeah. I am really struggling today. Easing into the top 5, appropriately enough in 5th place, we have The Five Doctors. Davison Easing into the top 5. Easing into the top. I am really struggling. Starting at the bottom in 20th place is that's all, folks.